Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're jumping into chapter 2 of 1 Samuel.
Yeah, and this chapter, it really packs a punch right from the start.
It really does. You get these huge contrasts packed together. There's this amazing prayer, but then right alongside it, you see deep corruption, real reverence, and, well, the serious consequences of how people choose to live.
Exactly. And our goal today is sort of unpack all that, see what insights this ancient story offers, because they still feel incredibly relevant.
They really do. Okay, so it kicks off immediately with Hannah's prayer. And this isn't just like a quick thank you, it feels much bigger.
Oh, absolutely. It's way more than personal thanks. Think of it as a major theological statement, almost like a psalm dropped right into the story. She got her son, yes, but her response is all about God, the giver, not just the gift itself.
You really feel that joy, that strength. She says, "My heart rejoices in the Lord. In the Lord my horn is lifted high." What's that about the horn lifted high?
Well, the horn back then was a symbol. It stood for strength, maybe power, dignity. So she's saying her strength, her victory, her, elevated feeling, it's not just because she finally has a baby, wonderful as that is.
Oh, okay.
Rooted completely in the Lord. She even says, "My mouth boasts over my enemies, for I delight in your deliverance." Her win is God's win, basically. It comes from trusting him, not her own effort.
And she makes these really strong claims about God, like, there is no one holy like the Lord, there is no one besides you, there is no rock like our God. That rock image, it feels so fundamental.
It really emphasizes his uniqueness, doesn't it? His perfect holiness, his absolute reliability. He's the solid ground, the unchanging thing you can depend on when everything else feels, well, chaotic.
But then right after that soaring praise, the tone shifts kind of abruptly. "Do not keep talking so proudly or let your mouth speak such arrogance," like a warning against pride.
Yeah, it's a sharp turn, but it's crucial. It connects her personal experience back to how God actually works in the world. He's not distant. He knows things. He weighs people's actions. Arrogance, she's saying, comes from forgetting that, from thinking your success is all you.
Right, ignoring God's part in it all.
Exactly. And ignoring his judgment, too.
And that leads into what I find maybe the most fascinating part of the prayer, this incredibly vivid picture of divine reversal. God just flipping the script on worldly power.
It's a theme you see running all through the Bible, isn't it? Mary's song in the New Testament, the Magnificat, echoes this exact prayer. Hannah lays it out so powerfully here. She sees God actively making these huge shifts happen.
Can you give us some examples from the prayer itself?
Sure. Okay, she talks about how the bows of the warriors are broken, so the mighty military gets neutralized, but those who stumbled are armed with strength. The weak get empowered. Or think about the social and economic side. Those who are full hire themselves out for food. The rich become desperate, but those who are hungry hunger no more. The poor are provided for. Complete reversal.
And the one that's literally her own story.
Right. She who was barren has borne 7 children, but she who has had many sons pines away. Her own life is exhibit A of God, turning an impossible situation upside down.
It keeps going, doesn't it? Even life and death.
Yes, the ultimate power. The Lord brings death and makes alive. He brings down to the grave and raises up, and then status shifts. The Lord sends poverty and wealth. He humbles and he exalts.
He raises the poor from the dust, lifts the needy from the ash heap, seats them with princes. That's more than just a little help. It's a total rewrite of someone's place in the world.
It is, and she grounds this power in something fundamental. For the foundations of the earth are the Lord's. Upon them he has set the world. Because he made it all, he sustains it all. He has the absolute right and power to shake things up, to bring about these, unexpected turnarounds.
And he actively protects his followers, guard the feet of his saints. But the wicked, they end up silenced in darkness. And then that line that just cuts against so much modern thinking. It is not by strength that one prevails.
Right. It really challenges our whole idea of pulling ourselves up our bootstraps, doesn't it?
Yeah.
True success, the kind that lasts, isn't ultimately about your own power or talent. It depends on God's intervention, his favor.
And those who oppose him.
They will be shattered. God will thunder against them from heaven, judge the ends of the earth. It's a picture of ultimate divine justice.
And the prayer finishes with this look ahead, which feels really significant for the rest of the book. He will give strength to his king and exalt the horn of his anointed.
That's fascinating timing, because Israel doesn't have a king yet, not in the way we think of David or Solomon. Eli's the priest judge. Samuel himself is going to be the one anointing the first kings.
So it's prophetic.
Definitely prophetic. It shows an awareness of God's future plans, hinting at the monarchy. And many see this pointing even further ahead to the Messiah, the ultimate anointed one. It also kind of sets the stage for a leadership change, because the current system, well, we're about to see his flaws laid bare.
So this prayer paints a picture of God who is completely in control, holy, just, and deeply involved in human lives, especially in lifting the humble and bringing down the proud.
That's it, precisely. And this theme of reversal, it's not just a nice thought, it's presented as a reality based on who God is. And it perfectly sets up the dramatic contrast we see immediately after.
Yeah, speaking of contrasts, as soon as the prayer ends, Elkanah heads home, but Samuel stays. And then we meet Eli's sons.
And wow, the shift is jarring. The text doesn't mince words. Eli's sons were wicked men. They had no regard for the Lord. That phrase, no regard for the Lord, that's the key. It's not just that they slipped up. It's their core attitude, zero reverence. God just wasn't important to them.
And their actions with the sacrifices really show that lack of regard, don't they? What exactly were they doing that was so bad?
Okay, so the normal process involved boiling the meat after the sacrifice, burning the fat portion for God, and then the priest got his share. But Eli's sons corrupted this completely. First, they'd just stick this big three-pronged fork into the pot while it was boiling and take whatever chunk came out, kind of greedy and bypassing the proper procedure.
But that wasn't the worst part.
No, not even close. The really outrageous thing was demanding the meat raw before the fat god's designated portion was burned on the altar.
Why was that so bad?
Because the fat belonged to God. Burning it was a crucial part of the offering, symbolizing the best part going to him. By taking the meat raw beforehand, they were basically stealing God's portion, treating the holy sacrifice like their personal barbecue. Showed absolute contempt for God's commands and the sacredness of the whole thing. They even used threats to get their way.
Yeah, the text is explicit. This sin of the young men was very great in the Lord's sight, for they were treating the Lord's offering with contempt. That word contempt just says it all.
It really does. It reveals their inner state. They despised the very system meant to honor God and facilitate atonement. And it gets worse. The text adds they were sleeping with the women who served right at the entrance to the tabernacle area, defiling sacred space with immorality.
Just awful. But against this darkness, you have Samuel. Just a boy, but he's ministering before the Lord, wearing a linen ephod.
Yeah, the contrast is deliberate. Even as a child, he's involved in priestly duties, wearing this special garment his mother makes him each year. It highlights his devotion. Maybe God's setting him apart early on, despite the mess around him.
And notice the parallel paths the chapter shows. While Eli's sons are sinking deeper into wickedness,
Samuel's growing. Right after mentioning Eli blessing Hannah and her having more kids, it says, meanwhile, the boy Samuel grew up in the presence of the Lord.
that framing isn't accidental, is it?
Not at all. It contrasts the moral rot of the priestly family with Samuel's spiritual development. He's not just getting older, he's maturing with God. Later it says he continued to grow in stature and in favor with the Lord and with men. It's the complete opposite path of Eli's sons, who were losing favor everywhere.
And Eli, the father, the high priest, he knows all this is happening.
Yes, the text is clear on that. He hears everything his sons were doing. He's aware of the corruption, the immorality. His failure isn't ignorance.
It's his response. Because he does say something to them.
He does. He asks, why do you do such things? He mentions the bad reports. He even asks that really heavy question about who can intercede if you sin directly against God.
So he gets the seriousness of it.
He understands the theology, yes, but the rebuke itself, it's weak. There's no follow-through, no real consequences. He doesn't remove them, doesn't stop them. It's just words, really, kind of toothless.
And then that incredibly chilling line. His sons, however, did not listen to their father's rebuke, for it was the Lord's will to put them to death.
That's a tough one. It suggests things had gone too far. Their consistent rebellion, their utter contempt, maybe combined with Eli's failure to act decisively. It reached a point where God's judgment was set. Their refusal to listen just confirmed their path.
So, back to the sacrifices. Why were their actions so offensive? It wasn't just rule-breaking.
No, it was far deeper. They were desecrating the very heart of worship, the sacred means God provided for connection and atonement. By treating it with contempt, putting their own desires first, using threats, they were essentially spitting on God's holiness and his provision. It perfectly demonstrated that no regard for the Lord.
And it really shows that being a priest, having the title, doing the rituals,
Means nothing without the heart behind it.
right.
They had the office, but internally, they were wicked. It's a stark warning about the difference between outward religion and genuine reverence.
And Eli's failure.
It's a massive leadership failure. He seems to have prioritized keeping the peace, maybe family loyalty, or just avoiding a difficult confrontation over defending God's honor and the integrity of worship. His inaction basically enabled their corruption.
And that has huge consequences.
Devastating consequences. For his family, yes, but also for the spiritual health of the nation relying on that priesthood.
Which makes Samuel's contrasting growth even more important.
Absolutely. He's the light in the darkness, the sign of faithfulness emerging even in corrupt times. God is preparing him, raising him up as the alternative, showing that his plans move forward even when human leaders fail spectacularly.
This whole section really drives home that difference between just, showing up for church or temple and actually having that genuine regard for the Lord.
It does. And it hammers home that our actions are the real evidence of what we truly value. Especially for leaders, actions speak incredibly loudly. Eli's sons poisoned the well, and Eli let it happen. It's a heavy responsibility.
Which leads us straight into the next section, where God himself addresses this failure head on.
Yes, through an unnamed prophet, a man of God, who delivers this direct message of judgment to Eli.
And God starts by reminding Eli of grace, right? Choosing his ancestors, giving them the priesthood.
Exactly. Setting the stage. Reminding Eli this position was a gift, not an entitlement, based on God's choice.
But then the hammer falls. Why do you scorn my sacrifice and offering? And even more pointedly, why do you honor your sons more than me by fattening yourselves?
Oof. That directly connects Eli's inaction to scorning God. By allowing the desecration, he participated in it. And by letting his sons, and maybe himself, benefit from the corrupt system, he put them ahead of God. A direct accusation of misplaced honor.
And the consequence is huge. The promise that Eli's family would minister forever, revoked. God says, "Far be it from me. Those who honor me I will honor, but those who despise me will be disdained."
That's a core principle laid bare. God's promises, while initiated by grace, aren't unconditional licenses for bad behavior. When honoring God turns into despising him shown by actions, the associated privileges can be withdrawn. It's about the relationship, the heart attitude.
And the specifics of the judgment on Eli's house are just brutal. Their strength cut short, no old men in the family seeing distress in God's house.
It's a picture of total ruin for that priestly line. Premature deaths, constant sorrow, witnessing disaster in the very place they were supposed to serve faithfully. It's a complete dismantling because the corruption ran so deep.
Plus that specific sign, Hophni and Phinehas, the main offenders, dying on the same day.
Yes, that makes the prophecy undeniable. When that happens, Eli will know for sure this message was from God and the rest of the judgment is coming.
But it's not only judgment, is it? There's also this promise of something new.
Crucially, yes. Amidst the pronouncement of judgment, God promises, "I will raise up for myself a faithful priest who will do according to what is in my heart and mind."
So God's purpose isn't stopped by their failure.
Not at all. He'll start over. He'll establish a new line, one marked by true faithfulness, obedience to his will, not self-interest.
And this faithful priest's house will be secure, firmly established, and he'll serve alongside God's anointed one always.
Right, connecting back to Hannah's prayer. This future faithful priest serves with the future king, the anointed one. It points towards a restored ideal leadership structure. Faithful priest, godly king, both aligned with God. Many see this pointing towards the Zadokite priests later, and ultimately, of course, to Christ, who perfectly embodies both roles.
And that final image of Eli's descendants, begging for scraps from the new priest's house.
It's the ultimate humiliation, the final reversal for the family that took its privilege and despised it. Reduced to begging for leftovers just to survive, it shows the depths they fall to after failing so profoundly.
So, what does this whole message really clarify about God's promises?
It makes it crystal clear that while God initiates covenants in grace, enjoying the blessings within that covenant involves ongoing faithfulness, honoring God. It's not automatic, regardless of behavior. That principle, honor for honor, disdain for contempt, is absolute.
And it directly links actions to consequences. No escaping accountability.
Especially for those in positions of trust. Actions like scorning holy things, prioritizing family or self over God, they have direct, severe consequences.
And the promise of that faithful priest, what's the bigger picture significance?
It's huge for the biblical story. It shows God always preserves a faithful remnant. He ensures his work continues, even if he has to replace corrupt systems. It keeps the hope alive for true worship, and ultimately points toward Jesus, the perfect high priest who truly does God's will.
It's definitely a sobering message about responsibility, especially spiritual leadership.
It really is. It shows authority isn't for personal gain, it's a stewardship. Faithfulness to God is the primary requirement, and failure carries heavy weight, impacting not just the leader, but everyone they influence.
And that idea that our actions show whether we truly honor or despise something, even in small ways, that really hits home, doesn't it?
It does. It forces you to look beyond what you say you believe and examine how you actually behave. How do you handle trust? How do you treat things you claim are sacred or important? Your actions, your priorities, they reveal what you truly regard. It's a challenge for all of us.
A real challenge. So we've journeyed through 1 Samuel chapter 2. We started with Hannah's incredible song celebrating God's power to turn things upside down.
Then plunged into that stark contrast. The wicked priests who held God's offerings in contempt versus the young boy Samuel growing faithfully in God's presence.
And finally, we faced that severe prophecy of judgment against Eli's house for their corruption and failure, but also heard the promise of a new beginning, a faithful priest who would follow God's heart.
Yeah, and the core themes keep surfacing. God's ultimate control, our accountability for how we live, the huge gap between just going through religious motions and genuine reverence, and the fact that God's plans ultimately succeed, even if it means judgment and starting fresh.
It leaves you with a lot to process. This chapter really emphasizes that honoring or despising God isn't just a feeling inside. It shows up in what we do, even in details like handling an offering. So here's something to think about. Where do our actions suggest our true priorities lie today? How does the way we live reflect what we claim to value most?